Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where we dive into the wildest, creepiest, and downright jaw-dropping stories you won't believe are real. Today, we're unlocking 3 chilling tales of home security gone wrongs, smart locks hacked in the dead of night, shady locksmiths with hidden agendas, and a fake electrician who left a family running for their lives. You won't want to miss a single second of this, so hit that subscribe button right now. Give this video a big thumbs up, and don't forget to smash that bell icon so you're the first to know when our next creepy story drops. Alright, let's bolt the door and get started. Story 1, the smart lock hacker. I've been living in this condo in Chicago for about 2 years now, and I swear, I used to love it. It's on the 12th floor of this old brick building downtown, with big windows that look out over the city lights. The place isn't huge, just a 1-bedroom with a little kitchen and living room combo, but it's got this cool industrial vibe, exposed pipes and all. I'm a bit of a tech nerd, so I decked it out with smart stuff. Lights, thermostat, and this fancy smart lock I got on sale. It was awesome at first. Locked the door with my phone. No keys to lose. Total convenience. I'd come home from work, tap the app, and hear that little click as the bolt slid back. Never had a problem with it until about a month ago, when things started getting weird. I didn't think much of it at first, just a glitch, right? The lock would beep sometimes, like it was unlocking on its own. But I'd check the app, and it'd say everything was fine. I figured it was just some random bug, maybe a low battery or something. But man, I had no idea what was coming. That day, God, I'll never forget. It was a Saturday, March 25th, 2025. I'd been home all day, just chilling, messing around on my laptop. It was late afternoon, maybe 4 p.m., and I was in the living room with the TV on low. The condo's quiet usually, just the hum of the city outside. But I started noticing this faint sound like a soft buzz, then a click. It was the smart lock. I got up, heart kinda thumping already, and checked the door. Locked, deadbolt in place, everything normal. I opened the app, and it said locked too. Last activity was me coming home the night before. But then, as I'm standing there staring at the screen, the lock buzzes again louder. This time and I hear the bolt slide back. My stomach dropped. I didn't touch my phone. No one else has access to the app. I yanked the door open, half expecting some delivery guy or neighbor. But the hallway was empty, just the flickering fluorescent light at the far end. I locked it again, hands shaking a little, and told myself it was nothing. Yeah, right? I sat back down on the couch, trying to shake it off, but I couldn't focus on the TV anymore. My condo's got this open layout, so from where I was, I could see the door clear as day. Just this heavy steel thing painted gray, with the smart lock glowing a faint green. I kept glancing at it, waiting for that buzz again. And sure enough, maybe 10 minutes later, it happened. Buzz, click, bolt slides back. I jumped up this time, grabbed my phone, and checked the app again. Still said locked, like nothing happened. I even refreshed it, thinking maybe it was lagging. But nope, no activity logged. My heart was pounding now, and I started feeling this cold sweat on my neck. I locked it manually, twisting the deadbolt hard, and stood there staring at the door like it was gonna do something crazy. The whole place felt off, like the air got heavier or something. I know that sounds dumb, but it's the only way I can describe it. Then I remembered the security camera I'd set up in the hall a while back. It's one of those little Wi-Fi ones, stuck above the door outside, hooked to an app on my phone. I hadn't checked it in forever, but I pulled up the footage, scrolling back to that afternoon. At first, it was just normal stuff, empty hallway. A neighbor walking by with groceries around noon. But then, at 4:03 p.m., right when I'd heard that first buzz, there he was. This guy in a dark hoodie, face hidden, standing just off to the side where the camera barely caught him. He's holding a phone, tapping at it, and then he looks up straight at the camera like he knew it was there. My blood ran cold. I checked the lock log next, and it showed nothing, no unlock commands, no app activity. But I knew what I saw. That guy was messing with my door. Somehow. And he'd been out there while I was sitting here clueless. I just stood there, frozen, staring at that footage on my phone. The guy didn't try to come in. He just stood there for maybe 10 seconds after that first unlock, then turned and walked off down the hall, out of frame. I scrubbed through the rest of the day's video, heart hammering, and saw him again at 4:12 p.m., same spot, same phone in his hand. That's when the second buzz happened. My condo's hallway isn't some public place. You need a key card just to get past the lobby. How the hell was he even up here? I kept replaying it, zooming in on his hands, trying to see what he was doing, but the camera's too grainy. All I could tell was he wasn't rushing, just calm, like he'd done this before. I felt sick, like my whole place wasn't mine anymore. That door, that stupid smart lock I thought was so cool, it was betraying me. I decided to call the building manager, this gruff old guy named Tom who's always in the basement tinkering with stuff. I told him what was happening, sent him a screenshot of the footage, and he said he'd come up. While I waited, I kept my eyes glued to the door, phone in one hand, a kitchen knife in the other, just in case. The lock stayed quiet, but I couldn't shake this feeling that someone was right outside, watching me through the peephole or something. The condo's walls are thick, but I swear I started hearing these faint scratches like fingernails on metal coming from the door. I told myself it was just my imagination, but every little creak in the building made me jump. Tom got there about 20 minutes later, huffing from the stairs, and checked the hall with me. Nothing. No one there, no marks, no sign of that guy. But Tom looked at the screenshot and muttered, "That's no glitch, kid. Someone's screwing with you." Tom suggested I check the locks logs going further back. Not just today, so we did. I sat on the couch, him leaning over my shoulder, and we scrolled through weeks of data on the app. My hands were sweaty, fumbling with the phone, and then I saw it random unlocks at night. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., all while I was asleep. Dozens of them, going back at least 3 weeks. Every time, the app showed no command sent, no phone linked, nothing. I felt like I was gonna puke. This wasn't some one-off thing. This guy had been at it for a while, standing outside my door in the middle of the night, unlocking it over and over. I thought about all those times I'd woken up groggy, hearing a noise, brushing it off as the wind or the neighbors. Had he been out there then? Tom just shook his head and said, "You need to ditch that tech crap and get a real lock." Yeah, no kidding. After Tom left, I couldn't sit still. I grabbed a screwdriver from my junk drawer and tore that smart lock off the door myself. The condo's got this faint, musty smell from the old building, but as I worked, I kept catching this weird whiff like burnt plastic or something coming from the lock itself. I tossed it in a box and slapped on an old deadbolt I had lying around from when I moved in. It's just a basic thing. No apps, no Wi-Fi, just a key. I locked it, tested it, and for a second, I felt better, like I'd taken control back. But then my phone buzzed. A notification from the smart lock app. Door unlocked. I stared at it, brain not even processing. The lock wasn't even on the door anymore. It was in a box on my kitchen counter. I refreshed the app, and it still said unlocked, time-stamped right then. 6:47 p.m., I turned around, and the deadbolt was still locked. But that burnt plastic smell hit me again, stronger, like it was coming from the walls now. I just stood there in the kitchen, staring at that box with the smart lock inside, my phone still glowing with that door unlocked message. My condo's lights were all on, but it didn't feel bright more, like everything was too sharp, shadows stretching weirdly across the exposed brick walls. I grabbed the box and shoved it into a cabinet, slamming the door shut, like that'd make it stop. But the smell, that burnt plastic stench, wasn't going away. It was thicker now, creeping up my nose, making my eyes water a little. I started wondering if something was frying in the walls, some old wiring maybe, but it didn't make sense. It was too specific, too tied to that lock. I kept telling myself to calm down, that I was freaking out over nothing, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I walked back to the door, checked the deadbolt against a lock, solid as ever, but I couldn't shake this feeling that something was wrong, really wrong, inside my own place. Then I heard a low hum, like static, coming from somewhere in the room. I spun around, trying to pinpoint it, but it was everywhere and nowhere at once. The condo's got these big windows, and outside, the city lights were flickering like normal, but inside, it felt like the air was buzzing. I checked the TV off, my laptop. The hum got louder, almost like a growl, and I swear I saw the deadbolt twitch. Just a tiny jerk, like something pushed it. My chest tightened up, and I backed away, tripping over the edge of my rug. I kept my eyes on that door, waiting for it to swing open, for that hooded guy to step in. But it didn't move again. The hum stopped, sudden as it started, and the silence hit me like a punch. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and loud, and that burnt smell was so strong I gagged. Whatever was happening, it wasn't just some hacker anymore. It was in here with me. I couldn't stay near that door anymore. Bolted to the living room, grabbing my phone and the knife again, my hands slick with sweat. The condo's open layout used to feel cozy, but now it was suffocating, like there was nowhere to hide. I kept looking at the door, expecting that deadbolt to slide back any second. Even though it wasn't hooked up to anything smart anymore, that burnt plastic smell was choking me now, and I started coughing, my throat raw. I opened a window, hoping some cold Chicago air would clear it out, but it didn't. Help, it was like the smell was stuck to the walls, seeping out of the brick. I kept thinking about that guy in the hoodie, how calm he'd looked on the camera, like he knew something I didn't. Had he been inside already? Was this some kind of game to him? My head was spinning, and I felt this prickling on the back of my neck, like someone was standing right behind me. I turned around fast, knife up, but the room was empty. Just my couch, the TV, the coffee table with a half-empty beer from earlier. But then I noticed the shadows, the overhead lights, this industrial bulb thing hanging from the ceiling. And it's always cast these clean, sharp shadows. Now, they were wrong, stretched out too long, bending in ways that didn't match the light. I stepped closer to the wall, watching the shadow of my arm move, and it didn't follow right, it lagged, like it was stuck, then snapped back into place. My stomach twisted up tight, and I dropped the knife, the clatter echoing way too loud in the quiet. That hum started again, faint at first, then building, and I saw it, the deadbolt twitched again, harder this time, like something was yanking at it from the other side. I screamed, "Stop it!" Not even sure who I was yelling at. The hum cut off, but the shadows kept shifting, slow and deliberate, like they were watching me. I backed up against the window, the cold glass pressing into my back, and just stared at that door. My condo's high up 12th floor, no balconies. Whatever was messing with the deadbolt couldn't be outside, right? But it kept twitching, little jerks, like something invisible was clawing at it. The burnt plastic smell was so bad I could taste it now, bitter and sharp, and my eyes were watering like crazy. I grabbed my phone again, hands shaking so much I almost dropped it, and pulled up the camera app even, though the smart lock was off. The hallway cam was still live. The feed loaded, and there he was again, that hooded guy, standing right outside my door, phone in hand, head tilted like he was listening. My breath caught, and I checked the timestamp, 7:32 p.m., right that second. He wasn't moving, just standing there, and then he tapped his phone and the deadbolt jumped again, harder, rattling in its frame. I yelled, "Get out of here!" But my voice cracked, and he didn't budge. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed the box with the smart lock, and yanked it out, thinking maybe it was still connected somehow. The thing was cold, heavier than I remembered, and that burnt smell poured off it like it was alive. I smashed it on the counter once, twice cracking the plastic, and the twitching stopped. The deadbolt went still, and I checked the camera again. The guy was gone, just an empty hallway, flickering light and all. But my relief didn't last. That hum kicked up again, louder, vibrating through the floor, and the lights flickered short bursts, like a strobe. I spun around, and the shadows were everywhere now, spilling across the walls, the ceiling, moving like they had a mind of their own. My phone buzzed, a new notification, door unlocked. I looked at the deadbolt, still locked, but the app kept pinging, over and over. Door unlocked, door unlocked. I threw the phone across the room, and it hit the wall with a crack. But the buzzing didn't stop, was in my head now, clawing at me. I sank to the floor, back against the kitchen counter, trying to breathe through the panic. The condo felt like it was closing in, the walls, the ceiling. All that exposed brick I used to think was so cool. Now it was like a cage. The lights kept flickering, and every flash made those shadows twist long, jagged shapes that didn't match anything in the room. I couldn't tell if it was my imagination or if they were really moving toward me, slow and deliberate, like they were sizing me up. That burnt plastic smell was unbearable, thick in my lungs, and I started gagging again, my stomach heaving. I kept glancing at the door, expecting it to fly open, but the deadbolt held just barely. The hum was constant now, a low growl that shook the floor, and I could feel it in my bones, like it was trying to pull me apart. I wanted to run, but where? I was 12 floors up, trapped in my own place with whatever this was. I crawled to the living room, grabbing my cracked phone off the floor. It was still buzzing, screen glitching with those door unlocked alerts piling up. I shut it off, but the buzzing didn't stop. It was coming from the walls now, the pipes, the whole damn condo. The shadows were thicker, pooling in the corners, and I swear I saw something in them, a shape, tall and thin, just standing there by the TV. My chest locked up, and I couldn't scream, couldn't move. It didn't have a face, just this blurry outline, but it was watching me. I could feel its eyes, even if I couldn't see them. The lights flickered harder, and in one flash, it was closer, right by the couch now. I scrambled back, hitting the coffee table, knocking over that beer can, and the smell of stale beer mixed with that burnt stench made me dizzy. The hum spiked, loud enough to hurt, and the deadbolt rattled again like a gunshot in the quiet. I thought, this is it, I'm done. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart slamming so hard I thought it'd bust out of my chest. That shadow thing was right there, maybe 5 feet away, just standing by the couch like it owned the place. The lights flickered again, and it moved slow, jerky, like a bad video feed. Stepping closer, I could hear this faint crackling now, mixed with the hum, like static from an old radio, and it made my skin crawl. The burnt plastic smell was so strong I couldn't think straight, and my vision blurred, tears stinging my eyes. I kept waiting for it to lunge, to grab me, but it just stood there, tilting its head like it was curious. The deadbolt rattled again, louder, and I saw it slide back just an inch, then snap back into place. My condo wasn't mine anymore. It was theirs, whatever this thing was. And that guy outside, they were in control. I whispered, please, leave me alone. But my voice was so weak it barely came out. Then the lights cut out, completely no flicker, just black. The hum stopped too, and the silence was worse, deafening, like the whole world held its breath. I couldn't see the shadow anymore, but I felt it close. So close I could have reached out and touched it. My phone was dead in my hand. No light, no nothing, and the darkness was thick, pressing on me. I heard a creak, the floorboards by the door, and my head snapped up. The deadbolt slid back, slow and deliberate, all the way this time, and the door cracked open an inch. No one was there, just the hallway lights spilling in, weak and yellow. I waited for that hooded guy to step inside, but nothing moved. The burnt smell faded, just a little, and the air felt lighter, but I was too scared to move. My legs were jelly, and I just sat there, staring at that open door, knowing something had gotten in, or maybe it had been here all along. I don't know how long I sat there, minutes, maybe an hour, just staring at that cracked open door. The condo was dead quiet now. No hum, no rattling, just the faint sound of traffic 12 floors below. The shadow thing was gone, or at least I couldn't see it anymore, and the lights stayed off, leaving me in this dim glow from the hallway. I kept waiting for something else to happen, for that guy to walk in, or the shadows to come back, but it didn't. My hands were still shaking, and I could barely feel my legs, but I forced myself to stand, leaning on the wall for support. That burnt plastic smell was almost gone, just a faint trace now, like it had burned itself out. I inched toward the door, every step feeling like a mile, and pushed it shut with my foot. Didn't even touch the deadbolt, just left it unlocked. I couldn't bring myself to lock it again, not after all that. I stumbled back to the couch and collapsed, pulling a blanket over me like some kid scared of the dark. The condo felt different, empty, but not safe. I kept replaying it all in my head, the lock buzzing, that guy outside, the shadows moving, that thing standing there. My phone was still off, screen cracked, and I didn't dare turn it on, didn't want to see those notifications again. The power didn't come back, but the city lights outside kept the room from going pitch black. I sat there till the sun started coming up, just watching the door, half expecting it to creak open again. It didn't. Whatever happened, it stopped as fast as it started. No warning, no explanation. I checked the hallway cam later, when I finally got the nerve, and the footage from after 7:32 p.m. was blank, just static, like something wiped it. That guy, the shadow, all of it gone, like it never happened. By morning, I was a wreck, hadn't slept, hadn't moved from that couch, just sat there clutching the blanket like it'd protect me. The condo looked normal in the daylight, same brick walls, same big windows, same old deadbolt on the door. The power came back on around 8 a.m., lights humming to life like nothing happened. I checked the door, locked it with the key this time, and it felt solid, no twitching, no buzzing. That burnt plastic smell was completely gone, and the air was just stale, like it always is in this old building. I even dragged the busted smart lock out of the kitchen and threw it in the trash. Shoot, couldn't stand looking at it. But even with all that, I couldn't shake this feeling that something was still off, like the condo was watching me. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. I kept glancing at the corners, expecting those shadows to creep back, but they didn't. Everything was quiet, too quiet. Maybe. I called the cops later that day, showed them the early footage of the hooded guy, and they checked the building's security tapes. They found him on the lobby cam, slipping in behind some tenant, but after that, nothing, no trace of him leaving, no record of who he was. They told me to change my locks again, maybe move if I could, but that was it. No answers. That night, March 25th, it all just stopped, like a switch flipped off. No more unlocks, no more shadows, no more of that smell. I still live here, believe it or not, but I don't sleep right anymore. Every creak, every buzz from the fridge, it gets me jumping. I can't explain what happened, and I don't think I ever will. It was like the condo itself turned on me for a day, let something in, then went back to normal. I don't know if it was that guy, the lock, or something else, but I'll never feel safe here again. That's my story, take it or leave it. Story 2, the locksmith setup. I've never been the type to believe in bad vibes or anything like that. But after what happened in my house that night, I can't shake this feeling that something was seriously wrong from the start. My name's Jake. I run a small tech startup, and I'm always swamped with work, so when I lost my house key a few weeks ago, it was just another headache to deal with. The house itself is nothing special, just a 2-story place in a quiet suburb, with faded blue paint peeling off the sides and creaky wooden floors that groan every time you step on them. It's got these narrow windows that barely let light in, and the front door's this heavy oak thing that always sticks a little when you turn the knob. I didn't think much of it back then, just a fixer-upper I'd get around to eventually. So when I called a locksmith to replace the locks, I wasn't expecting anything weird. I found this guy online, no reviews or anything, but he was cheap and available, so I went with it. Big mistake. The second he showed up, something felt off. He had no logo on his van, just this beat-up white thing with rust spots. And he kept smiling too much, asking stuff like you live here alone, and what time you usually get home. I brushed it off as him being chatty, but looking back, it's like the house was trying to warn me. That night, I couldn't sleep. It was around 2 a.m., and I was lying in bed next to my wife, Sarah, just staring at the ceiling. The house was dead quiet, except for this faint hum from the fridge. Downstairs, it's one of those old appliances that's always making some kind of noise. Then I heard it, a soft scrape at the front door, like someone was messing with the lock. My stomach dropped. I sat up, straining to listen, telling myself it was just the wind, or maybe a stray cat on the porch. But then the door creaked open slowly, deliberately, and I knew it wasn't nothing. The floorboards groaned under someone's weight, each step echoing through the house like a drumbeat in my chest. I grabbed Sarah's arm, whispering for her to stay quiet, but she was already awake, her eyes wide with panic. The air felt heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. I couldn't tell if it was my imagination, but the shadows in the room seemed darker, stretching across the walls like they were alive. All I could think was that whoever this was, they weren't supposed to be here, but somehow they had a way in. I didn't have time to think. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand and pulled Sarah out of bed, dragging her toward the bathroom down the hall. The house felt like a maze in the dark. Those narrow hallways I never bothered fixing seemed to close in on us, the walls scratched and scuffed from years of neglect. We made it to the bathroom and locked the door, my hand shaking so bad I could barely turn the knob. It's this tiny room, just a cracked sink, a flickering light bulb, and a window too small to climb out of. I pressed my ear against the door, holding my breath, and I could hear the footsteps getting closer, slow, heavy thuds on the stairs. Sarah was clutching my arm, whispering what's happening, over and over, but I didn't have an answer. All I could picture was that locksmith, his creepy grin, and the way he'd lingered by the front door when he finished the job. The house was old, sure, but it never felt alive like this before, like it was letting something in, something that knew exactly where we were. Then the bedroom door creaked open. I heard it clear as day through the thin bathroom wall, this long, drawn-out squeak that made my skin crawl. Whoever it was, they were in our room now, just a few feet away. I could hear rustling like they were digging through our stuff. Drawers slamming shut, the mattress springs groaning as they moved around. The bathroom door rattled slightly, and I swear I saw the knob twitch, like they were testing it. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it'd give us away. The air in there was stale, thick with this weird, musty smell I'd never noticed before, like the house was rotting from the inside. I kept thinking about that locksmith, how he'd handed me the new keys with this look in his eyes, like he was already planning something. I didn't call the cops yet, My phone was still in my hand, but I was too paralyzed to move. The house felt different that night, like it wasn't ours anymore, like it was working with whoever was out there. The rattling stopped, and for a second I thought maybe they'd given up. But then I heard this low, muffled thud like something heavy dropped on the floor, and the footsteps started moving again, right toward the bathroom. I whispered to Sarah to get in the tub and stay low, and I grabbed the only thing I could find, a rusty old plunger by the toilet. Real heroic, right? The bathroom light flickered, casting these jittery shadows on the peeling wallpaper, and I swear it made the room feel smaller, like the walls were pressing in. I could feel the cold tile under my bare feet, and every little sound, the drip of the faucet, Sarah's shaky breathing felt amplified, like the house was mocking us. Then the knob turned, slow and deliberate, and the lock clicked open. My blood ran cold. That locksmith he'd made a key, hadn't he? The door swung inward, and there he was, a guy in a black ski mask, eyes glinting in the dim light, holding a knife that caught the flicker of the bulb. The house seemed to hum around him, like it was welcoming him in. He didn't say a word, just pointed the knife and motioned for us to move. Sarah let out this choked sob, and I stepped in front of her, my hands up, trying to look braver than I felt. The guy's boots tracked mud across the floor, leaving these dark smears on the tiles, and I couldn't stop staring at them like it was proof this was real, not some nightmare. He shoved us back into the bedroom, and I noticed the air felt colder there, heavier, like the house was soaking up every ounce of fear we had. The bed was torn apart, sheets on the floor, and my dresser drawers were hanging open, papers scattered everywhere. He pushed us toward the bathroom again, locking us inside this time, and I heard him start tearing through the rest of the house. The walls creaked and groaned like they were alive, and I kept thinking about how that front door had let him in so easily, like it had been waiting for this. I banged on the door, yelling for him to stop, but my voice just echoed back, swallowed by the house. We sat there in the bathroom, huddled in the tub, listening to him trash the place. Every crash and thud felt like a punch to the gut glass breaking downstairs, furniture scraping across the floor, stuff I'd worked years to buy just getting ripped apart. The house was fighting us too. The light bulb flickered again, buzzing like it was about to blow, and the air got so thick it was hard to breathe. I kept running my hands over the chipped edge of the tub, trying to stay grounded, but my mind was racing. That locksmith's face kept flashing in my head, his greasy hair. That fake friendly voice, and I realized he'd played me from the start. The front door, the locks, the way he'd sized up the house like he was memorizing it all clicked. I felt stupid, helpless, sitting there while this guy turned our home into his playground. The walls seemed to pulse with every sound he made, like the house was feeding off it. Sarah was shaking next to me, her nails digging into my arm, and I could see her breath in the dim light, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees in that tiny room. I tried the door again, rattling the knob, but it wouldn't budge. He'd jammed it somehow. Then I heard him coming back up the stairs, his steps slower this time, heavier, like he was carrying something. My stomach twisted. I pressed my ear to the door and caught this faint jingling sound keys. Maybe the same keys I'd paid that creep to make. The hallway floor creaked right outside, and I held my breath, waiting for him to try the bathroom again. But he didn't. Instead, I heard the bedroom window slide open, the one I'd been meaning to fix because it never locked right, and then nothing, just silence. The house went still, like it was holding its breath with me, and I couldn't tell if he was gone or just waiting out there. I waited a few minutes, maybe 5, but it felt like hours. The silence was worse than the noise, like the house was daring me to move, to check if he was really gone. Sarah was still gripping my arm, whispering, "Is he still here?" over and over, and I didn't know what to tell her. I slid out of the tub, my legs shaky, and pressed my ear to the door again. Nothing. No footsteps, no jingling, just that faint hum from the fridge downstairs cutting through the quiet. I grabbed the plunger again, stupid, I know, but it was all I had. Anne managed to pry the door open, the wood splintering a little where he'd jammed it. The hallway was pitch black, the air cold and damp, like the house had sucked in the night itself. I stepped out, barefoot on the creaky floor, and felt this chill crawl up my spine, not just from the cold, but from something else, something I couldn't name. The bedroom was a mess, but the window was wide open, curtains flapping in the breeze. I crept to the window and looked out. Nothing but the empty street below, the street light flickering like it was on its last legs. No sign of him, no van, no shadow slipping away, just the night staring back at me. I shut the window, my hands trembling, and turned back to the room. That's when I noticed it. Muddy boot prints tracked across the floor, leading from the hall to the bed and back out. They stopped right at the window, like he'd vanished into thin air. My chest tightened. I ran downstairs, Sarah behind me, and saw the front door still ajar there. New lock gleaming in the moonlight, untouched, like he'd never even tried to force it. He'd walked right in. The living room was trashed, TV gone, couch cushions slashed, my laptop missing, but it was the door that freaked me out most. The house had let him in, handed him the keys to our lives, and I couldn't shake the feeling it wasn't done with us yet. Sarah kept saying we should call the cops, and I knew she was right. But I just stood there staring at that front door for a minute, trying to wrap my head around it. The oak felt heavier than ever, like it was taunting me, and the peeling paint around the frame looked darker in the moonlight, almost like it was bruised. I finally snapped out of it and dialed 911, my voice shaking as I told them some guy had broken in. While we waited, I checked the rest of the house. Every room felt wrong, like the air was thicker, the shadows sharper. The kitchen had this stale smell, like something had been sitting out too long, and the fridge was still humming, louder now, like it was trying to drown out what had happened. I kept expecting to see him lurking somewhere behind the curtains in the pantry, but he was gone. The house wasn't, though. It felt alive, watching us stumble around in the wreckage. The cops showed up about 20 minutes later, their flashlights cutting through the dark as they walked up the cracked driveway. I let them in, and they started asking questions. When did it happen? What did he take? Did we see his face? I told them about the locksmith, how he'd been weird from the jump, and one of the officers stopped me, mid-sentence. He crouched by the front door, shining his light on the lock, and muttered, "This hasn't been picked." My stomach dropped all over again. He looked at me and said it straight. Whoever came in had a key. A key! That hit me like a brick. The locksmith didn't just case the place. He'd made himself a copy. The cop's flashlight swept over the muddy prints, the trashed furniture, and I swear the house creaked louder right then, like it was laughing at me. Sarah started crying again, and all I could do was stand there, feeling like the walls were closing in. The cops took pictures, dusted for prints, and told us they'd look into the locksmith angle, but I could tell they didn't have much hope. They left us with a card and a lock your doors speech, like that meant anything after tonight. I shut the front door behind them, and the click of the deadbolt felt hollow. I didn't trust it anymore. Sarah was sitting on the stairs, hugging her knees, and I could see her staring at the muddy prints still smeared across the floor. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't the same quiet as before. It was heavier, like it was waiting for something. I grabbed a broom from the closet and started sweeping up the glass from the broken picture frames, just to do something. But every time I moved, the floorboards groaned under me. It felt like the house was shifting, settling deeper into whatever had happened here. I couldn't stay still. I went back to the front door and checked the lock again, running my fingers over it like I could feel where he'd slipped in. It looked normal, shiny, new, untouched. But I kept picturing that masked guy turning a key, walking through like he owned the place. The windows rattled a little from the wind outside, and I jumped, my heart racing all over again. I told Sarah we'd get new locks tomorrow, first thing, from a real company this time. But she just nodded, her eyes glazed over. The house felt colder now, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones, and I couldn't tell if it was the night air or something else. I kept hearing little sound squeaks, pops, that damn fridge humming, and everyone made me flinch. It was like the house was replaying the night for me, rubbing it in my face that I'd let this happen. We didn't sleep that night, not really. Sarah stayed on the stairs, wrapped in a blanket, while I paced the living room, trying to piece together what was left. The couch was a mess, stuffing spilling out like guts, and the TV stand sat empty, wires dangling where the screen used to be. Every time I passed the front door, I stopped and stared at it, half expecting it to swing open again. The house wasn't helping. It kept making these little noises, like whispers in the walls, and I couldn't tell if it was just old pipes or my head messing with me. I opened the blinds to let some light in, but the street outside looked dead. No cars, no people, just that flickering streetlight casting shadows that danced across the room. It made the place feel even more isolated, like we were trapped in here with whatever was left behind. Around 5 a.m., I gave up and sat on the floor next to Sarah. She grabbed my hand, and we just sat there, listening to the house breathe around us. The air still had that musty smell, like damp wood and something sour, and it clung to everything. I kept thinking about the locksmith, wondering if he was out there laughing, or worse, planning to come back. The boot prints were still there, smudged but clear, leading from the door to the stairs and back out. I couldn't stop staring at them, like they were proof the house had turned on us. The sun started creeping up, turning the sky this pale gray, but it didn't make anything better. The light just showed how wrecked everything was. The house felt different now, like it had crossed some line I couldn't explain, and I didn't know if we'd ever feel safe here again. By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I called a legit locksmith, some big-name company with reviews and a real website, and begged them to come out ASAP. They showed up around 8. This guy in a branded polo shirt who didn't ask creepy questions just got to work swapping out every lock in the house. I watched him like a hawk, standing by the front door with my arms crossed, while he drilled and hammered away. The new locks were shiny, heavier, and he gave me 3 key snow extras. No funny business. Sarah stayed inside, cleaning up what she could, but I could tell she was barely holding it together. The house still felt off, the air was stale. The creaks louder than they should have been, like it was pissed we were trying to shut it up. I kept glancing at those boot prints, wondering if they'd ever really go away. When the guy finished, he tested the door, and it locked with this solid thunk that should have made me feel better, but it didn't. I thanked him, paid up, and as he drove off, I stood on the porch looking at the house from the outside. The faded blue paint seemed grayer in the daylight, the windows darker, like they were sucking in the light instead of reflecting it. I went back in and bolted the door, but the second I did, I heard this faint scrape, like something sliding across the floor upstairs. My heart jumped. I grabbed a kitchen knife and crept up the stairs, every step creaking under me, the sound bouncing off the narrow walls. The bedroom was empty, windows still shut, but the air felt wrong, thick, cold, like someone had just been there. I checked every corner, under the bed, even the closet, but nothing. I went back downstairs, knife still in my hand, and told Sarah what I'd heard. She just looked at me, her face pale, and said, "We need to leave." I didn't argue, I was thinking the same thing, but where do you go when your own house turns on you? We started packing bags, just enough to crash at a hotel for a few nights, but every move felt watched. The floorboards groaned louder than ever, like the house was complaining, and the fridge kicked up its humming again. This low drone that got under my skin. I kept checking the locks, the windows, anything he could have used to get back in, but they were all secure. Still, I couldn't shake this feeling like the house wasn't just a building anymore, like it had seen what happened and decided to keep it alive. By noon, we were out the door, bags slung over our shoulders, and I didn't look back. We stayed at a cheap motel a few miles away, and for the first time in hours, I could breathe without feeling like something was pressing on my chest. But even there, I couldn't stop thinking about the house, those muddy prints, the way the door let him in, that scrape upstairs. The cops called later that day, said they'd tracked down the locksmith's number, but it was a burner, no real leads. They told us to get cameras, maybe a gun, and I did both the next week. We went back eventually, new locks and all, but it was never the same. The house stayed quiet after that, no more break-ins, no more noises, just this heavy, empty silence that followed us around. I'd catch myself staring at the front door sometimes, waiting for it to creak open, but it never did. Whatever happened that night, it stopped as suddenly as it started, and I still don't know why. It's been months now, and we still live here mostly because we can't afford to move yet, but I don't think I'll ever trust this place again. The house looks the same on the outside, chipped blue paint, creaky porch, those narrow windows that make it feel like it's hiding something. Inside, we've got cameras on every corner, a pistol in the nightstand, and I check the locks 3 times a night, but it doesn't fix what's broken. The boot prints are long gone, scrubbed out of the floor, but I can still see them in my head, leading right to where we hid. Sometimes I wake up at 2 a.m., heart pounding, swearing I hear that front door creak, but when I check, it's always locked tight. Sarah says she feels it too, this weight, like the house is waiting for something to happen again. We don't talk about it much, but I know we both wonder if that guy's still out there, or if it was even about him at all. That night just happened, then stopped, like a switch flipped off, and I've got no explanation for it. All I know is this house isn't ours anymore, it's something else now, and we're just living in it. Story 3, the fake electrician. I'll never forget that day, honestly. It still messes with my head when I think about it. My husband was out of town for work, so it was just me and my 5-year-old son, Jake, at home. We live in this quiet suburban neighborhood, nothing fancy, just a 2-story house with creaky floors and big windows. That afternoon, the power cut out, no warning, no storm, just dead silence as the lights flickered off. Jake was coloring in the living room, and I was in the kitchen trying to figure out what happened. I checked the breaker box in the basement, but everything looked fine, which made no sense. I'm not great with that stuff. So I Googled a local electrician and found some guy with decent reviews. I called him up, and he said he'd be there in an hour. Something about his voice felt off to calm. Maybe, but I brushed it off. I just wanted the lights back on before it got dark. About an hour later, this guy pulled up in a beat-up white van. No logo, no company name, just scratched paint and a dented door. He was tall, skinny, with greasy hair under a baseball cap, and he carried this old toolbox that rattled when he walked. I let him in, pointed him to the breaker box, and went back to Jake. The house felt weird with him in it, like the air got heavier, you know? He spent way too long down there, and when he came up, he started wandering around, taking pictures with his phone. Not just the outlets, but the stairs, the front door, even the hallway to our bedrooms. I asked what he was doing, and he mumbled something about checking wiring. It didn't add up, but I didn't want to seem paranoid. After like an hour, he said it was fixed on loose connection and left. I watched him sit in his van for 10 minutes before driving off. That should have been my first red flag. The power came back on after he left, and for a bit, things felt normal again. Jake went back to his crayons, and I started making dinner mac and cheese. Nothing fancy, but the whole time, I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling like I was being watched. I kept glancing out the kitchen window, half expecting to see that van still parked across the street, but it was gone. The house was quiet again, just the hum of the fridge and Jake humming to himself. I told myself I was overreacting suburban mom nerves, right? Still, I double-checked the locks on all the doors before we went to bed. Our house isn't huge, just 3 bedrooms upstairs, a living room, and that creepy basement with exposed beams and cobwebs. I always hated going down there, but that night, I kept thinking about how long that guy had stayed in it. I pushed it out of my mind and tucked Jake in around 8 p.m., then crashed in my room with the TV on low. I must have fallen asleep around 11, because the next thing I remember is waking up to this faint scratching sound like nails on wood coming from downstairs. It was pitch black. No TV glow, no clock light, nothing. My phone said 2:58 a.m., and my heart was already pounding. I sat up, listening hard, and there it was again, scratch, 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 slow and deliberate. I thought maybe it was a branch on a window, but there was no wind outside, just dead stillness. Then I noticed something worse. The baby monitor on my nightstand, hooked to Jake's room, was off. Not just quiet, completely dead. No static, no little green light. I grabbed my phone to check the security cameras we'd set up around the house front door. Back door, living room, but every single one was offline. My stomach dropped. That's when I heard it. A heavy thud, like something big hitting the floor downstairs. I didn't want to move, but I had to check on Jake. I slipped out of bed, barefoot, and tiptoed to his room across the hall. The floorboards creaked under me, and every sound felt too loud in that silence. His door was cracked open, which was weird. I always close it after he falls asleep. I peeked in, and he was still in bed, curled up under his dinosaur blanket, breathing slow. Relief hit me for a second, but then I heard it again, another thud, this time closer, like it was at the bottom of the stairs. My whole body went cold. Our house has this old wooden staircase with a chipped railing, and I could picture something standing there in the dark, just out of sight. I grabbed Jake, blanket and all, and pulled him into my arms. He mumbled something sleepy, but I shushed him and locked us in his room. I didn't know what was down there, but I wasn't about to find out alone. I crouched by the door, holding Jake tight, and texted my neighbor, Sarah, who lives 2 houses down. I think someone's in my house. Called the cops, I typed, hands shaking so bad I could barely hit send. The scratching started again, louder now, like it was right outside the door, slow, dragging sounds against the wood. I stared at the knob, waiting for it to turn, but it didn't. Instead, I heard this low hum, almost like a voice, but too deep to make out words. It wasn't the electrician's voice. It wasn't human at all. My chest tightened, and I kept thinking about that guy taking pictures, lingering in the basement. Did he do something to the house? Jake whimpered, and I hugged him closer, whispering, it'd be okay, even though I didn't believe it. The air felt thick, like it was pressing down on us, and the room smelled faintly of damp dirt, like the basement. I kept my eyes on that door, praying Sarah got my text. The scratching stopped, but that hum it just kept going, vibrating through the walls like the house itself was alive. I couldn't tell if it was coming from downstairs or right outside. Anymore, it was everywhere. Jake was awake now, clinging to me, his little hands digging into my arm. "Mommy, what's that noise?" he whispered, and I didn't have an answer. I just held him and watched the shadows under the door, waiting for something to move. The house felt wrong, like it wasn't ours anymore. Those big windows I always liked. Now I hated them, imagining something staring in from the dark. The basement door flashed in my mind again, that guy messing with stuff down there, taking his creepy pictures. I started wondering if he'd left something behind, something that wasn't just wires. Then it got worse. The floor creaked, not like when I walk on it, but heavy, slow steps coming up the stairs. 1, 2, 3. I counted each one, my heart slamming against my ribs. Our staircase has 12 steps on. No, because Jake counts them every day, and whatever it was stopped at the top. I could hear breathing now, raspy and uneven, right on the other side of the door. I shoved a chair under the knob, my hands slipping from sweat, and backed up to the corner with Jake. The humming turned into this awful gurgle, like something choking, and the air got so cold I could see my breath. I kept thinking about that electrician, his weird van, his fake excuses. Did he let something in? The house wasn't just a house anymore. It felt like a trap, and we were stuck in it. I don't know how long we stayed like that, huddled in the corner, but it felt like forever. The breathing outside the door didn't stop, just kept going, slow and ragged, like whatever was out there didn't need to rush. I kept checking my phone, but there was no reply from Sarah yet, and the signal was down to 1 bar. Jake was shaking, and I could feel his tears soaking through my shirt. I wanted to scream, but I was too scared to make a sound. The house was so quiet, otherwise no crickets outside, no hum from the fridge downstairs, just that thing in us. I kept picturing the living room below our worn-out couch, Jake's toys scattered on the rug end, wondering what was walking through it. The basement stairs kept popping into my head too, those dark, uneven steps that guy spent way too long on. I couldn't shake the feeling he'd woken something up down there. Then the door rattled just once, hard, like something slammed into it. Jake yelped, and I clamped my hand over his mouth, my pulse racing so fast I thought I'd pass out. The gurgling sound got louder, wet and nasty, and I swear I heard a faint scrape, like fingernails dragging down the wood. I looked around the room for anything to fight with, but all I had was Jake's toy truck and a lamp. The cold was unbearable now, seeping into my bones, and that dirt smell was stronger, like the basement had followed us up here. I kept thinking, this isn't real. This can't be real. But it was. The house felt alive, angry like it hated us being there. I didn't know if it was that electrician or something older, something tied to those creaky walls in that damp, dark basement. All I knew was we weren't alone anymore. The rattling stopped as suddenly as it started, and for a second, I thought maybe it was over. But then I heard the floorboards creak against low, heavy steps moving away from the door, back down the hall. It was heading toward my bedroom, and I didn't know if that was better or worse. I kept my hand over Jake's mouth, whispering to him to stay quiet, even though I could barely breathe myself. The air was still freezing, and that awful smell like wet earth and rot hung thick around us. I couldn't stop thinking about the electrician, his weird pictures of the stairs and doors. Did he know this would happen? My mind was racing, trying to piece it together, but nothing made sense. All I could focus on was keeping Jake safe in that tiny room with its peeling wallpaper and little race car bed. The house didn't feel like home anymore. It was something else, something watching us. A few minutes later, I heard this low bang, like something heavy fell over in my room. My dresser, maybe. I pictured its old wood, scratched up from years of use pulled on the floor for no reason. Then the steps came back, louder this time, stomping down the stairs like whatever it was didn't care about being quiet anymore. I kept waiting for sirens, for Sarah to come through, but there was nothing, just us and that thing. The gurgling started up again, fainter now, like it was back downstairs, maybe in the living room or near the basement door. I kept imagining that guy's van, his creepy toolbox, and how he'd lingered outside. Did he leave something in the house? Something that wasn't human? My skin crawled, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the house itself was part of it, like those old walls and cracked floors were hiding something all along. I don't know how I kept it together, but I did for Jake. He was sobbing quietly into my shoulder, and I just rocked him, staring at that chair jammed under the doorknob like it was the only thing between us and whatever was out there. The stomping stopped, but the gurgling kept going, echoing up from downstairs like it was pacing around. I could almost picture it moving through the house past the couch, around the kitchen table, maybe stopping at the basement door. That door's always been creepy, just this plain wooden thing with a rusty knob, but now I was terrified of it. I kept thinking about how the electrician spent so much time down there, snapping pictures like he was mapping the place. My gut told me he'd done something, messed with something he shouldn't have. The house felt alive in the worst way, like it was breathing with that thing down there. Then I heard glass shatter sharp and loud, probably from the living room. My heart sank, because I knew those big windows were down there, the ones I used to love for the sunlight. Now I pictured them smashed, letting in the dark. The gurgling stopped right after, and the silence was worse, like the house was holding its breath. I checked my phone again, 3:15 a.m. Still no signal, no word from Sarah. I wanted to call out, scream for help, but my throat was so tight I couldn't make a sound. Jake whispered, "Is it gone?" And I didn't know what to say. The cold was still there, the dirt smell too. And I kept wondering if that electrician had unlocked something in the basement, something that had been waiting. The house didn't feel empty, even with the quiet. It felt like it was waiting too. I couldn't just sit there anymore. I had to know if help was coming. I crept to the window in Jake's room, keeping him close, and peeked through the blinds. The street was dark, no cars, no lights, just shadows from the trees. I couldn't see Sarah's house from that angle, but I kept hoping for flashing lights or some sign the cops were on their way. Nothing. The house creaked below us, like it was settling or moving, and my stomach twisted. I kept picturing that electrician down in the basement, messing with more than just wires. Maybe he'd found something under those old beams, something buried in the dirt floor. The thought made me sick, but it fit the smell, the cold, the way the house felt alive. I hugged Jake tighter, trying to stay calm for him, even though I was losing it inside. Then the lights flickered, not all at once, just a quick buzz, like something was messing with the power again. I spun around, expecting to see the bulb in Jake's room go out, but it held. Downstairs, though, I heard this faint click like a switch flipping, and the gurgling started back up, louder than before. It was coming from the basement. I was sure of it. The sound bounced off the walls, wet and deep, like something dragging itself up those uneven steps. My mind flashed to the electrician's pictures again, those stairs, the door, all of it. Did he leave something down there? A key? A mark? I didn't know, but I could feel it. The house wasn't just a house anymore. It was awake, and whatever was in it was getting closer. I pulled Jake back to the corner, my hands shaking, praying the cops would show up before it reached us. The gurgling turned into this awful scraping, like something heavy was dragging across the floor downstairs. I could hear it moving through the living room, past where Jake's crayons were still scattered, right toward the stairs again. My whole body locked up, and I kept staring at the door, waiting for that chair to slide out of place. Jake was whimpering, asking why it smelled bad, and I couldn't even answer, just held him and tried to breathe. The basement door popped into my head again, that rusty knob, the way it always stuck when I tried to open it. I'd never liked that part of the house, but now I was sure something was wrong with it, something tied to that electrician and his creepy van. The lights flickered again, longer this time, and I swear I saw a shadow move under the door, long and thin, like it didn't belong to anything human. Then it stopped everything. No scraping, no gurgling, no creaks, just dead silence, so thick it hurt my ears. I didn't trust it. The cold was still there, biting at my skin, and that dirt smell was so strong I could taste it. I kept thinking, this is it, it's coming for us, but nothing happened. I checked my phone, 3:30 a.m. and saw a text from Sarah. "Cops are coming, hang on." Relief hit me, but it didn't last. The house felt like it was waiting, like it knew something I didn't. I kept picturing the electrician's face, those blank eyes under his capand, wondered if he'd planned this. Had he let something loose? The basement felt like the heart of it all, pulsing under us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was down there wasn't done with us yet. I don't know how long we waited after that text, but every second felt like an hour. Jake felt quiet, too scared to even cry anymore, and I just kept rocking him, my eyes glued to the door. The silence was unbearable, like the house was holding its breath, daring me to move. I kept thinking about running, grabbing Jake, and bolting out the window, but the drop to the ground was too high, and I didn't trust what might be waiting outside. That electrician's van flashed in my mind again, parked out front for way too long. I started wondering if he'd been watching us even before the power went out, setting this whole thing up. The basement kept nagging at me, those damp walls, the dirt floor, the way he'd lingered down there. Whatever was happening, it started with him. Then I heard its sirens, faint at first, but getting closer. My chest loosened a little, and I whispered to Jake, "They're almost here, buddy." But right as I said it, the floor shook like something slammed into it from below, hard enough to rattle the lamp on his nightstand. The gurgling roared back, so loud it drowned out the sirens, coming straight from the basement. I could feel it vibrating up through my feet, and the door started trembling, the chair scraping an inch across the floor. The lights went out completely, plunging us into black, and that dirt smell hit me like a wave. I screamed, clutching Jake. Sure, whatever it was would crash through any second. The house felt alive, angry, hungry, and I knew it wasn't just some burglar. It was something else, something that guy had let loose. The sirens got louder, and I could see faint red and blue lights flashing through the blinds. Cops were finally here. But that thing didn't care. The door shook again, harder, and the gurgling turned into this guttural snarl, like it was pissed off they were coming. I held Jake so tight I thought I'd hurt him, yelling for help even though my voice was hoarse. The floor kept trembling, and I swore I heard wood splintering downstairs like the basement door had busted open. Then, just as I saw a flashlight beam sweep past the window, it stopped. No snarl, no shaking, nothing, just silence again. The cold faded, the smell vanished, and the lights buzzed back on like nothing had happened. I sat there, frozen, listening to the cops bang on the front door, too scared to move. It was over, but it didn't feel over. The cops came in, searched the whole place, living room trashed, windows smashed, but every door still locked tight. They couldn't explain it, and neither could I. Downstairs was a mess, but the basement, untouched, quiet, like it had never been part of it. I told them about the electrician, and later I found out his company didn't even exist, no record, no trace. We moved out a week later, couldn't stay in that house after that night. I still don't know what happened, what that guy did, or what was down there. It just started, went crazy, and stopped, like a switch flipped off. Jake still asks about the bad noise, and I don't have answers. All I know is that house wasn't right, and whatever woke up that day, I hope it's still sleeping.